Well, my next guest is a long-time Democratic advisor and leader for the Arab American perspective in Democratic politics. He's been in Michigan supporting Abdul al-Sayed and said of his win, quote, "This will be a watershed moment, not just for progressives or for Arab Americans, but for the entire system." James Zogby is the founder and president of the Arab American Institute. He joins us now from Washington. And just your sort of initial response in what has just been the past hour as CNN has projected the win.
Well, it was exhilaration, Becky, and thanks for having me on to talk about it. Number one, Abdul's just a remarkable young man. I'm so impressed with him, both his perseverance as also his intellect and his ability to connect with people about what they really need. And if you don't mind, I can go a little further and say that this was watershed because so many critical issues were raised and talked about, and he won. He won on the issue of dark money. I mean, almost 70 million in dark money spent against him. He was outspent 11-1 in media, and he still won. It shows that money can prop up a candidate, but can't always win. He also debated the issue of Israel in a very significant way. It isn't normally talked about in election contests. Candidates have views on it, but they duck it. They don't raise it out front. He did, and he engaged Haley Stevens in it, and he won. And I think what's also critical is what you mentioned about the progressive agenda. It was always suggested that it's a losing agenda. You've got to sort of be more like Haley Stevens, which is say, I want affordability, but then never propose the programs that make life more affordable. And Abdul did. I mean, he talked about healthcare for all. He talked about some of the very issues that Mamdani raised. And in a state like Michigan, which is not New York and not an urban center, but is a massive state that has such an incredible diversity of population, he won. So this is a big deal. And I'm really proud of him and proud of the state.
So, Israel, a defining issue in this race, James. Al-Sayed consistently blasting AIPAC for spending about $30 million to back his opponent, their largest ever investment in a single race. And this issue, of course, carries particular weight in Michigan, which is home to the nation's largest Arab American population. Many people there have been directly affected by the wars in Gaza and in Lebanon. This was Al-Sayed earlier speaking on MS Now. I just want our viewers and you to hear this.
We've been talking about an illegal apartheid regime for a very, very long time, and that supersedes Netanyahu himself. So I just think we need to treat Israel the way we would treat any other country who behaved the way that Israel is behaving. I understand that Netanyahu is a big reason why they've gotten so aggressive and frankly so bloodthirsty under his reign. But I also understand that it's impossible for us to say that we want a two-state solution while we've been aiding, arming, and abetting the very people who've been trying to foreclose on the possibility of a Palestinian state.
The question was, do you have an issue with just Bibi Netanyahu or with Israel as a country? And you heard his response there. How much do you believe Al-Sayed's strong stance against Israel played a part in this win, James?
It was very significant. He's a truth teller, and Israel and AIPAC and Netanyahu, they've all become kind of litmus tests for the integrity of a candidate. When you do what Stevens did, which is come out and, I dream of Israel and I love Israel, whatever, and ignore the reality that the country you say you love and that you dream about is committing genocide, just doesn't make sense to voters across the board. I think that he raised the issues in a very important way, in a way that has not been done before. I mean, candidates usually will have a position on it, but not talk about it. He actually insisted on talking about it, partly because of the Arab American community, but also because in Michigan, a huge population of young people, of progressives, of black voters, feel very strongly about the genocide that they saw playing out in real time every day for 3 years and continuing. That was an issue that resonated, and he insisted on talking about it. He didn't duck it, even when the millions were being spent against him. And I think people respected his integrity on that issue. He didn't duck it. He confronted it head on. Let me make just one other comment about Arab Americans. You know, when I started some of the work I do 4 decades ago, the guy running for mayor in Dearborn, Michigan, ran on the platform. He sent a tabloid out to everybody's home. What about the Arab problem? They don't speak our language and they don't share our values and they're ruining our darn good way of life, he said. Well, we got the answer to the question what to do about the Arab problem. You elect them to the highest offices in the state. We now, Abbas Alawi, who just a remarkable young man who led the uncommitted movement, won decisively in Dearborn, East Dearborn, and parts of Detroit for the state Senate. We elected other Arab Americans this election, and Abdul Saeed's going to be the Democratic nominee. It's a big deal for the community, and I'm really proud of them.
So, and we are waiting to hear from him. And when we do, I'm going to cut in. So forgive me if that happens. There is a podium set up for him there in Dearborn. So I'm just going to, in Detroit, sorry, in Michigan. So I'm just going to carry on watching those images and show them to our viewers. But as soon as we hear from him, we will jump in. The Democratic establishment has argued for years, since the 2016 presidential primary between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, at least, that moderates are more electable in a general election. El-Sayed is now the most significant challenge to that dogma, and the stakes are enormous. This is a must-win state for Democrats. You've probably forgotten more about Democratic politics than most of us will ever know. How do you believe he broadens his appeal and the appeal of the progressive part of the sort of Big Ten, as it were, in Democratic politics, in order, firstly, for him to beat his Republican opponent, Mike Rogers, and then for this to become a wider movement?
Look, number one, let me just say I love being the opening act for Abdul Saeed. It makes me feel great. Number two, on the question you asked, Becky, the issue that Haley Stevens could never answer is why did all the polls show that he would beat Rogers more than she would? She was losing in many of the polls against Rogers. Abdul Saeed's always winning. And here's the reason why. Because it takes something to beat nothing. And when Haley Stevens didn't have anything to offer other than what the establishment's been talking about for years, it was a losing contest against Mike Rogers. Plus, the money that she was getting from AIPAC, which built her up, wasn't going to go to her in a general. It was going to go to Mike Rogers because these are from a lot of Republican donors. So she didn't have the money to hold her up, and she didn't have a program. And Abdul has a program that's a populist program that people care about. They care about Medicare for all. They care about forgiving student loans. They care about programs that create jobs and respect the needs of working families across the state. She didn't have any of that. She would talk about, I want things to be affordable, and then just, how are you going to do it? And she wouldn't talk about it. That's how Mamdani won in New York, but it also plays well in Michigan, where you've got a lot of working class people who've lost their jobs, a lot of farmers who are paying a dear price. You have AI coming in and making life more expensive for people in rural areas. And here you got a guy who's confronting it head on. And he's pretty much doing, I think, what Democrats need to do across the board, which is present a program that actually works for people and that they can understand is for them. Moderates have lost. Hillary Clinton lost. And Kamala and Joe Biden were going to lose. If you looked at the polls in 2020, every poll showed that Bernie Sanders would have done better against Trump than Joe Biden. Thank God Joe Biden won in 2020. But people forget, one of the appeals of Donald Trump was that he talked about working families. He talked about people's frustration with the establishment, et cetera. His programs basically sucked, but he focused on the anger, the frustration, and the hurt of working people across the country who felt that establishment stop talking to him. Democrats need to talk to those people with that message and convince them that we're going to make a difference for you. We're not going to be same old, same old. We're going to be new. And Abdul is new, and he presents an agenda that's new, and I think it's very important.
Question is, I mean, I get your big picture on where Democrats and the Democratic Party should be headed. And I can see that you will be advocating to party leaders, you know, that this is a direction that works ahead of the midterms. The question is, ultimately, will they listen? You know, and what will we see emerge as that sort of pathway that for the Democratic Party going forward, as we are, less than 90 days away from these midterms and then 2 years, of course, to the US presidential elections. James, I couldn't have had a better guest on today to analyse and provide some insight on what we have seen out of Michigan today. And I do want to get to Detroit now. Thank you, James.